Would you ever wonder if the moon went away? Did you ever have those thoughts, friends?
Hi, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Kat.
And we're the Ghouls next door. Talking about spooky stuff.
Yeah.
As we
Doing
do.
it again, you know?
Yes.
How many times? It's been a bunch. And we're gonna keep on keeping on with the audios and the videos. You're welcome.
112 times. Welcome. We are the media literacy show from a horror lens where we explore the real life, historical, political, geological reasonings behind our cinematic fears, or in this series, our written fears. We're talking about writers and a prolific work of theirs. And last time you heard us talking about N.K. Jemisin, so...
Context clues.
Could be talking about literally any of... She has so many books.
So many books.
So many things to say.
We're talking about one of them specifically. Yeah. And then like kind of the others, but we're really slow at reading. So we only read the one a little bit. One the whole the way, and then a little bit of the other ones.
Yeah. And when we were planning this series, I was like, oh yeah, let's throw N.K. Jemisin in here, because then it gives me an excuse to like force myself to read, because like I have a very large like TBR like tower of books ready for me, and it's just always there, like in the periphery, like, hey, you're gonna like me. And my partner has been telling me for like since we like met. Was like, you would really love this series, you're gonna love it, you should, like, has gushed about it so many times. And I was like, yeah, of course. And we have all the time in the world. And then started reading it, and he was like, well, you can't just cover the 5th season, you have to cover the whole trilogy, like you're not gonna get it. And I was like, I think I'm gonna get it. And now I get it, but I don't get it, you know?
Yeah. Because apparently so much more happened. But honestly though, like I feel like our listeners will appreciate us only talking about the first one so that they can just get really excited about it, and then they'll read the other ones.
Yeah.
You get it? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like a gateway book.
So we did the right thing.
Yeah. Hopefully you... And also, like, this episode's going to be long anyway, the same way, like, all the other ones have been that long, because this is a very long book. It's like the longest book I've read all year. And then on top of that, there's so much that's happening in there. It is a trilogy, so I also picked some things from the other books, but not too much, because I was like, I can't speak on that. So it would have just been, like, impossible. So in the future...
Yeah, maybe we'll cover the other ones, you know. We'll get them in there.
Yeah.
And they're worth it. I haven't read them yet, but I know that based on the first one. So
yeah, so I just wanted to be like upfront. Everyone needs to know it is the 5th season that we're talking about, not Broken Earth. Like, there's a little bit about the Broken Earth series. There is going to be like a little sprinkling of possible spoilers, but there are enough that, like, this book, it's so complex that even when you're kind of spoiled by something, like, you don't know what that means. And even when it happens in the book, you're like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it, because I am very bad at read, and I did not finish even the first one. And I was like, spoil it for me, because I'm going to keep reading anyway, but like, I am very confused as to what's happening, but it's interesting enough that I'm like, I want to know though, so I'm going to keep reading.
Yeah. And
but a lot of the information, you're just like...
It's okay that you don't know anything. You're like, I'm still confused. I was like, you're going to be that. It was, when I was reading, like, every now and again, like, partner would turn to me, and I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, what happened? I was like, there's an obelisk, and inside of it is a dead stone eater. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, what is that? What's a stone eater? It's like, Well, you got to keep reading. But it was like every time something like
there's a thing in it and it's dead and we don't know.
this crazy thing would happen, I'd be like, what is that?
Well, it's like the and you think an answers happen, but it's not. It's just a new question. Yeah.
This character would
But
show
that's
up and be
what's
like,
kind of great about it, honestly. Like,
yeah. The
you're
fact
just
that
like,
you don't
okay.
feel bad about it. Like you could still like you
It's
don't
so
feel like
exciting.
you're out of the loop. You just feel like you gotta catch up to the loop, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
It's like the loop is there, but it's just like layered. So you like have to you get introduced to each little layer of the loop and like eventually you'll get close to the middle, but it's gonna take a while.
yeah. And I just want to like bury myself in the glossary. I just want to be like, what is this word? What does that mean? I want to like know the history. Like the same way with Octavia Butler's Parables, I wanted to like read Earthseed. I was like, I want that as like a companion book that I just have, and I could just read Earthseed as its own thing. And I'm like, I want to read the stone lore.
Yeah, because they're talking about it the whole time. Yeah.
I want to know what happened. I want to know the other seasons. I want to know other things. So it's so robust and beautiful for a fantasy series that like I get people who just like geek out so hard about Lord of the Rings or Dune, like those worlds that are like too big, and I was like, not for me.
Yeah,
like you're
this
making up
one.
words, you're making up countries, you're making up people. Like I don't know, but this was like so yeah.
Yeah,
Worth my time.
about it. Yeah. And when I get to where you are, and we both get to the end, I'm sure we'll both have even more to geek out about. And then our listeners will too eventually when we talk about it.
Yeah. We should have like a meetup where everyone just like talks about their feelings about
a meetup?
What happened. Well, you know, virtual.
Virtual. Cool. Then I'm there. 100%. You're like outside? Ooh.
No, I would never.
With strangers? No.
Yeah.
But I'm following now virtual. That sounds lovely.
Yeah. Virtual, we could everyone just kind of talk about your things. Like we were talking to our friend Roland, and he was like listening to it and he was like 90% through the book, and he was like, I still don't understand anything that's happening. And his partner was like, yeah. That's how it's supposed to be. You're still not supposed to know what's going on. It's like, I got like 20 pages left. Are you sure? And I was like, guess what? More questions.
Yeah. I need Isaiah to get into it, but like read faster than me so that we can have those moments.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, whoa. And they're like, yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah. It's definitely one of those books where you want to hear someone else talk about it. And I will say, I would love someone to pick up Broken Earth and make it into, like you were saying, a TV show, Kat, or film, but like with a film series or something with the same dedication and passion that went into something like Lord of the Rings or the beginning of Game of Thrones. You know, like building this whole world, getting people really into it. I feel like it would be so cool. People love Avatar, the animated one, so I'm sure people would love this if we can figure out how to do it.
I think it would be super interesting as an animated series just because you could do a lot visually with that, but very interesting as a show. I feel like movies they would disappoint us, like unless they're making a 3-hour Batman for each one. Like,
I mean, that's what they did for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. If they do that, then it's fine. But if they do anything less, then it's a disappointment. But a show, I feel like they would space it out, and then it would work really well because of the way the characters are written. Because then you get like little peeks into each person's situation.
And then even like different time periods, like you could.
Yeah, it would lend really well to a show, just like structure.
We need it. Yeah, we need it.
Maybe it already exists and we just don't know. But I don't think so. I feel like we would have found it in the Google.
But maybe it can. Maybe it can exist. But let's dive in. Let me tell you stuff.
Yeah, do it.
So, as I said, we're talking about the 5th season, specifically the first of the trilogy, the Broken Earth trilogy. And this was published in 2015, which isn't too long ago, but also forever ago. Because what is
Yeah.
time? And the 5th season takes place on a planet with a single supercontinent known as the Stillness. Every few centuries, its inhabitants endure what they call a 5th season of catastrophic climate change. And it's written by N.K. Jemisin. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I want to know all the different seasons. They're so cool and addicting. But yes, we will in the future revisit the Broken Earth trilogy.
Mhm.
Because I have only read the 5th season. I've started the Obelisk Gate, and it's really hard to put it down, but it is still it's a meaty book. So I'm working through it. But the trilogy as a whole has so much more to explore, and I really look forward to diving into the entire series at a later time. Like when I was writing this, I felt really disappointed in the fact that I don't know everything. I was like, there's so much more. I spoiled things for myself, but like in a good way. And just knowing that like this episode is just the tip of an iceberg. So do not come at me in the comments when you're like, well, actually, this is like, because I don't know yet.
Yeah. Gabe is a 5th season baby.
Just 5th season, little dabbing my little toes in there. So there's so much more that can be said and explored because it is a work of literary art and media literacy art. It's profound and deep, and it's so much more than I can cover in my little section of like 30 minutes. So I'm going to try to cover some of the things that really stuck out to me and I found really interesting and really powerful with N.K. Jemisin's work. And then, we'll also get into what's really scary with Kat too. So diving further into the synopsis of what happens in the 5th season, the Stillness is a land ravaged by climate and geological disasters. And this other world features seasons in which Father Earth, which is what they have dubbed the Earth, exacts his revenge on the populace in the form of these seasons. The season of Teeth, which was caused by an earthquake and eruption, resulted in the fragile bones of northern populations. The Madness season, caused by an eruption that blotted out the sun for 10 years, led to increases in mental illness and probably like depression, like all kinds of like, all those things. Essentially, this is a world that's suffering from the choices of its predecessors. We are in the end. Essentially, that's what she tells you. And the end is this world that is suffering the consequences of what peoples have done before it. And it's kind of like cautionary tale for what we might be doing to our planet. So further, Father Earth, in an attempt at control, created a race of people known as origines who control tectonic plate activity, siphoning heat from the Earth and living beings around them to move the very Earth beneath them. This part I found really interesting because it's like this form of magic where they do need to use heat to be able to they're like earthbenders. But they need heat, and sometimes it's like body heat from another person or it's from the environment. And the Name of the Wind fantasy books also have magic in them, and they had a similar thing with that where I was like, that's so cool to have these like practical explanations for what is otherwise magic. Of course you would need to exchange energy to make this thing, so
alchemy.
Really fun. Alchemy. Consequences. Anyway, these origins, which are earthbenders, having this phenomenal power, are predictably feared by the Stills, who are normal folk, or still, and therefore oppressed by those who don't understand their power. Origins live in fear too. Their fate's tied to their own populace's whims. Some are murdered by the townspeople around them. Even their own families are at risk. Jemisin shows that to us immediately with a murder by family. Others are enslaved by the Fulcrum, which is like this schoolish program, oppressive system, which hones the skills of the origins to be used for quote unquote good. And here they're used as tools and are under the control of their terrifying guardians who can nullify their powers and existence. Yeah, they can nullify their existence, just straight up unmake you. And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Kat's about to see that when she gets to this book. She hasn't even seen the unmaking yet. Others still.
Oh, God.
It's like, it's so scary. I was like, this is horror. You cannot tell me.
Yeah.
So there's people who are murdered by their family and friends and neighbors. You go to the fulcrum where you're turned into this tool for the institution, and just utilized until you're not anything. Others survive long enough to control their powers and successfully hide them, allowing them to live amongst the stills. And they're known as ferals. They're born wild out there, and by learning outside of the fulcrum, they are a bit more dangerous and untamed, and also not as skilled and powerful. Like, some of them are pretty good. Later in the second one, we get to see a little more powerful still ferals out there. But for the most part, they're kind of like untapped because they can't be as open, There is one even more horrifying fate of certain origins, but I won't spoil it because it was really horrible. It was really traumatizing.
That was so sad.
That was a treat for you. And that horror will pilots the fear of a lot of people. It's like, oh, that could happen. That's the worst fate of all. So we avoid it. This story.
That was the big sad, right?
No, that's one of the big sads.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
It's like the second big sad. So
yeah.
In the 5th season, the story follows 3 of these origins. We have Isun, who's an older and mysterious origin who just lost their son tragically. They, or rather you, set out to find their other child who is still alive and actively in danger. Cyanite is a fulcrum-trained origin. She has 4 rings, which is the fulcrum's status tier system. You earn rings by how skilled you are at controlling your powers. And they are setting out on a challenging mission with a temperamental and complicated 10-ringer, Alabaster. 10 super powerful, very dangerous, and a little bit crazy. Or a lot of bit crazy. They're seen as very crazy all the time, but also amazing. Love them. And their name's Alabaster. And then finally, we have Demaya, a young feral origin who is discovered in her home to be a Roga, which is the slur for origin, and is given to her terrifying new guardian, who brings her to the fulcrum for taming. Part of this taming is he breaks her hand to show her that she's dangerous and that he is powerful. And she's supposed to love him. Anyway, throughout the book, we journey alongside these protagonists, and they encounter unspeakable horrors, reckon with oppressive forces, find love, lose love, and more. And a beautiful and heartbreaking story of perseverance in the shadow of a dying planet. And when we start at the end of the world, you have to ask, where do we go from here? So I'll start with a dream. So last week we talked about N.K. Jemisin, her process, and how it starts with a dream at first. And so here's a bit about her dream that she explained in that incredibly helpful New Yorker article that we talked about last week, titled N.K. Jemisin's Dream Worlds by Rafi Kachadorian. And they say, several years ago, N.K. Jemisin, the fantasy and science fiction author, had a dream that shook her. In her sleep, she found herself standing in a surreal tableau with a massive floating in the distance. It was a chunk of rock shaped like a volcanic cone, a cone-shaped smoking mountain, she recalled. Standing before the formation was a black woman in her mid-40s with dreadlocks who appeared to be holding the volcano aloft with her mind. She was glaring down at Jemisin and radiating anger. Jemisin did not know how she had triggered the woman's fury, but she believed that, if she did not ameliorate it quickly, the woman would hurl the smoldering massive at her. So Jemisin awoke in a sweat and jotted down what she had seen. I need to know how that person became who she is. A woman so angry that she was willing to move mountains, she told me. She was angry in a slow burn, with the kind of anger that is righteous, enough to change a planet. That's a person who has been through so much shit that she has been pushed into becoming a leader. That's an MLK. I needed to build a world that would explain her. Boy, does she. It's fascinating to imagine that this dream, and then a class that she attended by NASA explaining how doomed the Earth would be without its moon, inspired the saga of 5th season. Each of the books in her Broken Earth trilogy won the Hugo Award. We mentioned this last week. which is the first time that has ever happened, that each
Yeah.
book in the trilogy won a Hugo Award, and she was the first Black person to win the Hugo Award, period. It's a big deal. And there's a reason why, because it's phenomenal. And at the core of the series is a story about humanity, both the good and bad of humanity. And just as Octavia Butler confronted and addressed the flaws in our society, doomed by our hierarchical nature, prejudice, and short-sightedness, Jemisin too envisioned a world that, although fantastical, is also very honest. Akin to a mirror. I had spoke with a friend who read the series and described it as another place, another world with alien folk. And I couldn't disagree more. For me, this book was not science fiction, but instead speculative fiction. Sure, we cannot move the Earth now, but I have no misgivings on the power of our planet, our connection to nature, and how the Earth will always put itself first, healing, shifting, unmaking, and remaking itself into something we'll need to adapt to. And maybe that looks like us being earthbenders, you know? It doesn't seem that crazy to me. You're like,
yeah, no. And when we get into my section, you'll learn it isn't that crazy. It isn't that crazy.
Yeah, and definitely all the seasons like are logical. Like they have these crazy fantasy names, like the Season of Teeth or Season of Madness. But then you're like, oh, of course it would be the Season of Madness if we didn't have the freaking sun. Like it all makes so much sense. And so wait for cat section because they're gonna go all over that. But I'm gonna lead into some of the themes that come up, and they're a lot more about people and the tragedy that is humans. So N.K. Jemisin's work is often steeped in deeper meaning. We talked about this last week as well. And her world is a replica of our own, full of pain, turmoil, and resistance. Again, another Octavia Butler kind of thing where there is a strain of hope and empowerment through this like existing and persisting. Though each one of her books is unique, this world built from dreams and research, they do have similar foundations throughout. And so one of the major themes in this book, and definitely comes up in all of her books, and there's a reason for that, is oppression. Right there. So during a live panel about world building at a convention, Jemisin explained that when you're building a world, you have to ask yourself, who is being oppressed, why, and by whom? Because someone is always being oppressed. That is just always the case. It's a given. So the stories that matter here are these ones, under the heavy weight of prejudice and fear. And in the Stillness, there have been beings throughout history with immense natural power. I'll explain some of the native peoples a bit later, but we do get a good dose of the world's prejudice towards origins, specifically in 5th season. The origins are villainized. They are feared for their power and painted as a punishment, not a gift. Their treatment is not subtle and a blatant reflection of our society's colonialism and institutionalized racism. There are other tools of oppression represented in the trilogy that include capitalism, advanced technology, and commodification. So a lot of layers. They're all interconnected. We talk about here on the show all the time. The Stillness is also literally a caste system with people's names relating to their role in society. So it's like name this, that. That's how I was going to introduce myself on the show, and I forgot. I was going to be like, Gabe, podcaster. Their use castes connect to breeding, manual labor, innovation, like their role, what their whole entire purpose is for society. And people are reduced to that because it's all about survival. Like we're in constant survival mode. We're in constant fight or flight, like never rest kind of mode. So survival is at the forefront of their minds. So storytellers are seen as archaic and useless. We see a bit more of that in Diablo's Gate, just a little bit so far that I've seen. But origins don't even get that. A use cast name. Instead, they're reduced to a subhuman designation, a trained but not to be trusted monster. Because their origin. That's it. That's what you are. You're just this, you're raced. That's literally it. It's not it's ridiculous. Anyway, after her dream of the woman, Jemisin began mapping out the world of Broken Earth and the Stillness. She envisioned a somewhat metropolitan hub, a central power and place of stability, and she asked herself why this woman would not reside there. Where does the story take place? What has caused her strife? And in a later interview about her dream in which a woman moved a mountain with her rage, Jemisin had said, that was the summer when, just about every other minute, there was the unjustified killing of a Black person at the hands of police. Ferguson was happening, and I was angry myself. I wanted to throw a mountain myself. And this actually really made me think of how Isun, the older origin that we are first introduced to, whose son is murdered at the beginning of the book. She explains that she hadn't been able to teach him control because he was still young. He hadn't known how to hide his origin and to know that what was in him was wrong. Like it was just innocence. And Obelisk, how little he knew about his own villainy is really painful, because he has this naivety, this perceived safety that causes his death because he's not on alert, essentially. So this education that Isun planned to show her son and had presumably shown Nasun, her daughter, and even then she didn't fully understand the danger either, we get to see that later, reminded me of the talk that many Black parents have with their children, where they warn and prepare them for interactions with police and others who will see them and only see violence, fear, and retribution. It made me think of all the young Black kids who don't get that talk and are now no longer here because they weren't prepared. Like Uchi, these children live in the understanding that they are children, that they're safe and understood to be harmless, not as monsters to be feared, which is what those others with that power are going to see them as. But even still, like, there's always a hint of otherness at a certain age. Like, something is wrong with the way that others see you. And that becomes apparent in Obelisk Gate. We get to see other kids who are like, got to keep this a secret because it's dangerous, just me existing.
Yeah.
There's also the problem of tradition and inheriting generational traumas that really stuck out to me, especially in Obelisk Gate, but even throughout the 5th season, it's starting to pop up that there is this problem with tradition, or the quote unquote the way things have always been, because tradition can oftentimes stifle the growth and advancement of humanity because we just kind of get stuck in the routine and what is supposed to be done. And it's like, how many times have revolutionaries and those daring to question the status quo been met with excuses of that's the way it has always been when trying to make a change?
Yeah.
Get anywhere if you just keep doing the same thing. That's literally madness. So throughout the journeys in the 5th season and the Broken Earth trilogy as a whole, we get a glimpse into the world, the whole Stillness world. And after each chapter, Jemisin gives us a snippet from the Stone lore, which are these written warnings or instructions. They're like pieces of history, but the ones that we see in 5th season are the ones that are like, prepare for a season by storing stuff. And it's like, don't trust origins. That's what they are. And the Stone lore are followed quite strictly by the people in the Stillness. They offer words of advice for preparation for surviving the season, so they're really important to them. They also warn of the dangers of the powerful origins that are emotional beings, and if they are left to their own devices or feelings, could end us all. So it comes from this place of fear. But we also learn in 5th season that the Stone lore, the characters have grown up with, these words of wisdom, are not limited. These are not the only ones that exist. More out there, like these hidden apocryphal texts that Alabaster, my favorite character, reveals to Cyan. And Alabaster serves as this wise voice of reason, even though he is labeled as crazy, because he's crazy just because he doesn't do what everyone wants of him, and he's mad.
Yeah.
He's mad that he's just shook all the time because he has with the heavy weight of knowing the real horrors of the world. And so he continually, like, frustratingly so, reveals things to Cyan, of what the truth is about their people, specifically about origins, and saying, like, you know, we are more powerful than you think, and that it is the ones in powers that are the ones in charge are afraid of them, and so are trying to suppress them. And there's an entire history of oppression of origins and other peoples that refuse the status quo. Their power and strength have been erased or repressed from history, and it's leaving only fear of or hatred for the peoples left. This is strategic. It is because it's serving a very specific class of people. Generational trauma is also a really strong theme within works of Afrofuturists as a genre. Afrofuturism is defined by Natasha L. Womack as an intersection of imagination, technology, the future, and liberation. And the term was coined by Mark Derry in his 1993 essay, Black to the Future, where he imagines Afrofuturism as a possible response to his question: can a community whose past has been deliberately rubbed out and whose energies have subsequently been consumed by the search for legible traces of its history imagine possible futures? And that's like Afrofuturism. It's like, it's not fiction. It is fiction, isn't it? Like, it's so. In the 5th season and the rest of the trilogy, we can watch as these questions are actively asked and solved by the protagonists. Cyan, Isun, Demaya, spoilers, all the same person, are indoctrinated into the Fulcrum's lies and later into the revolution. If you were told your entire life that you and people like you are wrong, evil, to not trust your instincts, that you are deadly, like you can harm the people you love, you have no choice but to believe that. And we, as readers, learn of the cultural truths alongside these protagonists and with them, too. We deconstruct those ideologies to reveal a history of oppression and a possibility for redemption. And enough rage to move a mountain. Because that's exactly how it feels. There's also, like, because of the research that Jemisin does, there's also this, like, climate change. Like, that's a very big part of the horrors of the 5th season and the whole Broken Earth trilogy. Is like, this is literally like a tale about climate change and to be afraid of it, right? So the series reveals a history of the stillness throughout, and one ripe with oppression, control, and magic. So long before the existence of the origins, there were a group of magical peoples, the Thanese. And again, this is me just reading it. I did not listen to the audiobook of The Stone Sky yet, so I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. But that's how I'm pronounce it. So the Thanese, this history is explored in The Stone Sky, the last book of the series, which I, again, have not read, so I'm only learning about what's happening as well through the research I did. Little spoilers for myself, little spoilers for you, so just, you might want to move ahead if you want to avoid it, but it's pretty cool. Very cool. It made me be like, oh my God.
Can't wait to get there,
and I was like, whoa. So the Thanese are, they mirror our native peoples specifically, and they understand that the magic of the world is not a commodity, but a living thing. And Hoa, who's a character in the series, is a... Sorry, can't spoil Stone Eater.
It's okay.
He's a Stone Eater.
No, I got there. You good.
Okay, cool. He's... I can't remember what I kept in, so there might be another really big spoiler about Hoa.
That's okay. It's okay.
Anyway, Hoa, who's a character that Isun interacts with, he's a Stone Eater. Again, what? Stone Eater? What is that?
Yeah.
We're gonna find out. I do know now, but I didn't reading it. It's because I spoiled it. Anyway, he explains in the book from page 209 to 210, he says, magic is everywhere in the world. Everyone sees it, feels it, flows with it. In still anagist, magic is cultivated in every flower bed and tree line and grapevine draped wall. Each household or business must produce its share, which is then funneled away in gene-engineered vines and pumps to become the power source for global civilization. It is illegal to kill in Sil-Energist because life is a valuable resource. The Nies did not believe this. Magic could not be owned, they insisted, any more than life could be, and thus they wasted both by building, among many other things, plutonic engines that did nothing. They were just pretty, or thought-provoking, or crafted for the sheer joy of crafting. And yet, this art ran more efficiently and powerfully than anything the Sil-Energistine have ever managed. Lots of words. I don't know, because all words are made up, but these ones are especially made up. So, while the Sil-Energists sought to cultivate and commodify the magic of the world to make this lovely capitalist system, the Thenese look to respect it. And so the Sil-Energists colonized and later annihilated those peoples for this. Because that's what they do. In a blog titled, "Oh, Oppression, How Much We'd Like for You to Leave," Part 1 by writer Jose Romero, they compare the description of the treatment of the Thenese to the Indian Removal Act, stating, on page 209 it states, "The Sil-Energistines took their lands. The Nies fought, but then responded like any living thing under threat, with diaspora sending whatever was left of themselves flying forth to take root and perhaps survive where it could." And they say, as I was reading this, I was instantly reminded of the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which is a law passed by Congress to remove Native Americans, a very socially and politically oppressed group, from their eastern homelands and force them to move west. Like these individuals who had to migrate west, Nies too were managing to keep hold of who they were, though, and continuing to speak their language, even as they grew fluent in other tongues. Later on in the text, it is revealed that Sinologists, Silenogists, I'm going to say that Silenogists were committing genocide against the Thenese since they couldn't understand their magic and realized that they did not have to conform to treating magic as only a commodity. And so they took control of their power in the system and removed that oppressive group from their society. The scornful dismissal of Nies' efficiency as a fluke of physiology was superior and infallible. And as discussed in our eco-horror series, there are many activist groups in the country fighting climate change and the harmful acts by those in power who have too much of it and are harming our earth for money. Sound familiar? These groups are often led by and maintained by indigenous peoples. Atwood, in explaining the horrors of The Handmaid's Tale, had explained that nothing in her book was made up and everything that happens has happened to someone, some people, at some point in history. For Jemisin, that is also true. Under the guise of the fantastical, the magical, there is truth in the very human reactions to such elements. In their section, Kat will explore the real horrors that we may face were we to lose our moon, a tragedy, a volatile end to our monstrous reign on the planet. But if we find ourselves persisting on this planet despite that, despite the annihilation and the absolute transformation of our world, I have no doubt we'd not learn from these traumas, but instead will perpetuate them for eternity. Ever hopeful I am.
Yeah.
As I said, I haven't finished the series, so I don't know if Jemisin offers hope in the end, the way Butler did. All I know is that she starts us at the end in the cold, dark, and emotional grief of the end, and she reminds us that it's the end wherever she can, that this is the end of the world. I look forward to seeing how it plays out, how we got to the end of the world, and how maybe the end of the world just means the end of what we know.
Yeah.
And so just some final thoughts by Cachadorian from that amazing New Yorker article. They say, it could be read as an environmental parable or as a study of repression or as a mediation on race or a meditation on race or as a mother's post-apocalyptic quest. Jemisin wove in magical elements, but she systematized. That's it. She's oh my God.
You could do it.
What is it?
Systematized.
Jemisin wove in magical elements, but she systematized them so thoroughly that they felt like scientific principles, laws of an alternative nature. She evoked advanced technology that made it so esoteric that it seemed like magic.
Yeah.
Thank you for such big words. Check out our blog for links to further reading. If you've read the whole trilogy, then I highly recommend reading some of these entire papers about all of the ways that oppression is there. And there's lots of spoilers if you haven't read them, but it also is like really awesome. It's like, whoa, what? So that's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's like made up words from her that are hard, and then there's made up words in our language that are hard because all words are made up.
Yeah, every single one of them. It's not real.
Words.
It's like when people get mad about grammar, and I'm like, grammar was made up.
It's all made up. It's a system of oppression.
It's not real. So, yeah. But yeah, it's honestly such a good book, and I'm really excited to get to the parts, even if it's a little spoilery time. To get to the parts next, because I still haven't got to the end of this season. I'm like very close, but I'm not there yet. So I'm like very excited to get there because I feel like so much more really questions, but also then I get to read the other parts. So yeah, hopefully by the end, you have answers, which it sounds like we would. So that's
I wouldn't say like, you mean like the end of the books?
Yeah, like all of them.
Okay, I thought you were saying, I was like, there are no answers at the end of 5th season.
Okay, no, I mean like the trilogy ends, and if there's no ending there, it should be more than a trilogy.
Yeah. No,
you put more books now.
I think it ends.
Yeah.
It's done with a bow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, otherwise it wouldn't be a trilogy.
I haven't gotten there yet, so.
Yeah, we'll get there, and then we'll have many thoughts, I imagine.
Yeah.
We'll just be like... just gasp all the time. But yeah. Would you ever wonder if the moon went away? Did you ever have those thoughts?
I've never.
I don't know if I've like thought about it intentionally. I feel like, in those what ifs, you're like, wow, what would the world be like? And I feel like maybe I've thought it, but also probably not. But
we kind of thought about it when we did Melancholia, and it wasn't so much that the moon was gone. It was just like if a moon-sized thing came. Yeah, and it was like, we are just one space mishap away from annihilation. Just nature doing what nature does.
Yeah,
away from annihilation, always, forever.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's like how we were at the end of Girl with the Gifts. It's like it's just the end for you,
True.
So people might go away. Other things might happen. What if the oceans take over? Ocean animals are like pretty smart. They probably are already down there doing civilization in some way. Hopefully better than us.
There's so much down there we don't even know.
There's the long dangly squid guy.
Yeah, he's subsistent down there.
He's doing stuff.
As long as they're in the ocean, they're good.
They don't even have gender, probably. Like, fuck it.
Yeah, little
squid
tentacle
person thing. Yeah, doing it, living their best life. So if the moon was gone, what I learned, and as I always say when we cover sciencey things, I am not a scientist. I am very far from a scientist. So like, I researched this with my non-scientist brain, and take that with as you will. I did get a degree in anthropology. That's slightly different, though. It's like a kind of science. Yeah, it's the science of humans, because I'm like, what are those? And that's how I tried to learn about them. Except academia is super flawed because it's hella racist. Moral of the story is, if our moon was to go away, we would be royally effed. Like, super bad time. For like a lot of reasons. And like, it's already royally effed because of climate change. But like, there's things we can do at that point, you know what I mean? Like, there are things we can do to slow down climate change and like not actively harm the planet. We can't really control if the moon explodes unless like we're the ones who did it. Then yeah, like that's an us thing. But
yeah, they definitely did it.
One is like, we have some semblance of saving it. And then if the moon just goes explode now, there's so many ways in which it could impact us that are all very unpredictable because it just depends on what kind of perfect storm takes place afterwards. There's like things we know will happen because science, but like how they'll happen exactly all really depends. So essentially, the worlds that NK created center around like this idea of this moon being gone. And that's why we're talking about it. But also like the way it impacted human evolution. I looked up a bunch of times in a bunch of different ways what would happen to people if the moon was gone. Like evolution wise. And I didn't get much of an answer there. It's more that if the moon never existed, people probably wouldn't evolve to be people. Like we probably wouldn't exist.
So we needed that.
Yeah, we needed the moon. And like most evolution in terms of mammals need the moon. So like if the moon never was, we might not be here. We almost 100% won't be here. But
also, I think the origins came from like the Earth doing something.
Yeah, I don't think like the evolution was from the moon situation. It was more like the Earth was like, you guys doing it. The seasons does happen because of the moon, though. So I'll get into that.
Heck yeah.
So what would happen if the moon was gone? A helpful article on Forbes titled 7 Ways Earth Would Change If Our Moon Was Destroyed by Ethan Siegel.
Helpful.
Yeah, really helpful. And starts with a bang. Details what this would look like, what it would mean. So the destruction of the moon would result in potential debris, obviously flying very quickly towards the Earth, but like not like super quick. Like not as quick as an asteroid. So that's like the bonus. That's like the thumbs up part.
It could be worse.
Yeah. So
lining.
this may or may not be life exterminating. This really depends on how the moon was destroyed. Was it like a big explosion that totally eliminates it entirely as if it never existed in the first place? Okay, like we're not going to have like giant rocks flying at us then, or like giant amounts of dust absorbing into our atmosphere and quickly heating the planet until it's habitable. But like if it doesn't happen that way, if it dissolves into chunks, etc., it's like there's lots of ways that this could go down, and that would really impact how like the immediate after would go. So it really would depend on the magnitude of the impact, and if we completely destroy it, break it into a few pieces, or break it down into a bunch of little pieces that kind of break off into debris. So each version of this would have a significantly to slightly different result. Like ultimately the tides and all that other seasons and Earth's axle tilts and stuff like that, that would all happen no matter what happens. It's just kind of like, do we get hit with giant rock or not? So if the moon split into smaller pieces, they would likely reform into one or more smaller moons. I also read somewhere that like if you kind of destroy them but they don't move, that they could over like a lot of time just reform back into the original moon. It just like take a minute. But essentially they could reform. Yeah, like a long we did not see the minute end. And neither would many of us and our children's 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 children. But like eventually it could happen.
I will say that it's probably like a factual like explanation of how long it would take considering the small amount of time we've been here.
It's been a minute.
Of, like the existence of it would
humanity
be
is a little blip.
Yeah.
So it's gone. And then the Earth is like, wow, they did a bunch of damage. Never going to do that again. Keep them. Don't let them do technology. That was the mistake.
We learned.
Yeah. Or like just, it's time. But yeah, so essentially it would not destroy the planet no matter what, like entirely. It would probably just really impact us and like mammals and land-based animals,
water creatures.
Yeah, water creatures too. But like,
I mean, we're water creatures.
Yeah. Things that are influenced by tides. So it wouldn't be as destructive as an asteroid or a comet that we fear because these fragments have less energy upon impact. So if it's a bunch of little pieces, like they would not really it would be bad, but it wouldn't be as bad as like asteroid or comet or like what destroyed the dinosaurs happening. The speed impact would be minimal comparatively, and make it less deadly because of the less energy. And that's because asteroids or comets striking Earth move at 20, 50, or even over 100 kilometers per second. But lunar debris would be moving at a mere 8 kilometers and would strike only a glancing blow with our atmosphere. So
it's closer.
Yeah, it has a lot less time to travel, so it's slower.
Look at me be smart.
Yeah, you get math. So damage would still happen, like, don't get me wrong, and many life forms, including humans, would likely die, like even just like from the impacts. And that's like the least bad part of it. But it would likely not drive an entire humanity extinction level event unless like a very specific amount of factors happen. And it's honestly like, at least not right away. Like you kind of want to go in the beginning because the after is what's like bad. So the impact would be less than 1% of the total energy of a comparably sized asteroid. For this reason, we would likely survive the impacts. And if they were small enough, these little chunks would be kind of like chilling in our atmosphere. The real problem would come if you survive any of these initial impacts, that the change to the planet could either be really gradual or super fast. It really just depends on the exact circumstances. The debris from the moon likely won't result in problems right away, but it can range from destroying any and all satellites in our orbit to collecting in our atmosphere and forming like a Saturn-like ring, gradually releasing debris to burn up before it reaches the planet's surface. The ring would also likely, as I said, destroy satellites, but leave the planet unscathed. If satellites were destroyed, there would be impacts that would affect the ability to send signals into space, which would make it so likely our internet, cell phone, general globalization vibe would be impacted by that. And there have been many books and movies positioned around the destruction of the internet and global connections. So I think it's like reasonable to assume the fallout of that would be like a bad time, like negative for a lot of people. There's also another possibility, which would involve like the tiny pieces dissolving into the Earth's atmosphere and further heating the planet more rapidly than it's already doing. Which could potentially lead to inhabitable levels of heat over a long period of time. Specifically, I don't think that the moon would produce enough debris to heat the planet at which like all the oceans would evaporate, but it could heat it enough to at the very least melt what's left of the Arctic, forging any kind of forgoing any axial tilts that push us into an ice age. And the results would be water levels rising and land decreasing exponentially. The biggest impact, though, is less about the actual impact of the moon's debris and more about like what happens to our axial tilt, specifically our placement and how we rotate on an axis. Earth spins on an axis tilted at 23.4 degrees with respect to our orbital plane around the sun. This is known as our obliquity. You might not think that the moon has much to do with that, but over tens of thousands of years, that tilt changes from as little as 22.1 degrees to as much as 24.5 degrees. The moon is a stabilizing force, as worlds without big moons like Mars see their axial tilt change by 10 times as much over time. On Earth without a moon, it's estimated that our tilt would possibly even exceed 45 degrees at times, making it a world that spun on our sides. Poles wouldn't always be cold. The equator might not always be warm. Without our moon to stabilize us, ice ages would preferentially hit different parts of our world every few thousand years. So that we would have seasons.
Imagine how dizzy you would be, you know?
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
That's good. But the seasons that NK propositions as a possibility would likely exist in that there would be times where parts of the planet did not have access to the sun. There would be times where parts of the planet experiences exponential cold. There would be times where destabilizing events happen that like really just mess with adaptivity of life. So humans in many ways would need to learn to return to like nomadic ways of life in order to survive. We'd find failure in structured locations and the kind of like inability to change. So like society would need to go. Like countries, no. It's like open borders or everyone's going to die. And I think like that's going to be our downfall more than anything else, is that people's inability to change will lead to our ability to like survive these events even worse.
And people are so much more nomadic and like fluid in the trilogy, like because they're just expecting like, oh, life is going to change, so I got to move.
And like ideally, the fall of the internet and other things would destabilize society enough that like we could just kind of vibe. So yeah, the destabilization of the earth would lead to other impacts that drastically affect weather, plant life, and overall biodiversity, as well as the evolution of humanity and other animals. There would likely be creatures that evolve past us, humanity as we are now, that would either place us in a position of prey or drive extinction-like events like genocide. Whether that's a break-off from our current Homo sapiens or another species entirely, thinking aquatic life where dolphins, octopi, or other creatures that develop higher adaptivity to the changing planet can exist like on the ocean floor, or like maybe they come up on the earth now. Like that's literally what evolution is. Like I'm pretty sure crocodiles were whales once. Like, you know what I mean? Like kind of they just came out of the ocean. We were once fish. So that can happen. It's just likely it's going to take a minute. So it's possible also maybe that humans or creatures like that exist could develop powers similar to NK's book in that like the origins or stone eaters could develop to meet evolutionary needs to survive this ever-changing planet, and that eventually stills or humans without these powers would not have the adaptive requirements to survive the many seasons of planetary change. What is difficult about thinking through this is that the changing of the planet would be so unexpected in its shifts, it would be really hard to adapt to because you never really would know what the season would entail. Like you don't know if it's going to be an ice season or a teeth season or a fire season or a madness season. You know what I mean? Like you don't know how it's going to go down. So it's really hard to prepare for something when you really have no idea. And
you don't name them till after. So
exactly. The survivors named the season. So the middle space is just chaos. So what else would happen if the moon was destroyed? Some lighter results would be that the night sky would be brighter, and that'd be pretty. Unobstructed by the moon, or vision of space would be clearer. The new sky would be extremely beautiful. With this, there would be no more eclipses. The length of our standard days would also either remain constant or potentially decrease. The moon impacting the speed of the Earth's rotation, slightly slowing it over time, is where we have our leap years and our 24-hour day cycles. When the dinosaurs were around, it was 22-hour days. So it's changed over time. So this has impacted the time of our days by slight increments over centuries. Without a moon, we would either be constant 24-hour days until the sun dies, or we would decrease in hours of days. So like if the Earth's rotation slowed down or sped up, we'd have different results. So essentially, if the rotation of the Earth sped up, wind and other weather events could likely increase. This would make it very hard for birds and bugs specifically to survive, which would likely make it very difficult also to fly planes. We would see a significant decrease in pollination by animals. So we'd probably see a lot more just like wind-based, or we'd have crops die like crazy.
We'd have crazy like tumbleweeds.
And also they would spread like nothing. Like we'd have fire because all the time, because the tumbleweeds are just invading.
That's the fire season for you.
Yeah. No, exactly.
And you'd fly right up. I'm kidding.
Another thing that would be really impacted by the moon, which seems the most obvious, and I haven't mentioned it, is tides. They would be really impacted by this, specifically impacting like land mammals, but also aquatic life. It would dramatically impact the biodiversity on coasts. And specifically an article on Royal Museum's Greenwich titled, "What Would Happen If the Moon Disappeared?" They elaborate on the climate impact that it would that would happen if it happened with the no moon now. So while I can't speak either, we're having time. While tides would not cease to exist, they would shrink, forming more constant mini tides that are still influenced by the sun, but they would be unchanging and significantly smaller than our current tides. Tide pools currently hold some of the ocean's richest biodiversity, so the decrease in tides would impact this, and as a result could decrease in the biodiversity of the ocean overall, as well as like coastal ecosystems. Animals that depend on these tides, like crabs, mussels, starfish, and snails, would likely go extinct. And the result of this would not only impact sea life, but also impact the land animals who rely on coastal ecosystems for a food source. Specifically, people who rely on like ocean animals to live. That's the thing too. But also like coastal animals would likely go extinct. As ocean currents are often driven by tides that distribute warmer water around the globe, the impact on global climate becomes more obvious. Without these currents, temperatures could potentially grow more extreme. As I said, having periods of ice ages, either cooling or kind of just like not as obvious distribution of the poles, etc., which would lead to a lot of like biological chaos. In terms of additional effects this would have on animal life, it would likely spur a rise in prey, specifically, and a decrease in predators. The lack of a moon would impact many predators who use the moon's light and the advantage of the night's darkness to hunt. Prey would fare better because predators could no longer use the light of the moon to help them hunt. And this wouldn't impact all predators. Ones that have decent night vision or echolocation would likely do okay. But from an evolutionary standpoint, it likely changed the way in which eyes develop as well and evolve in wildlife as well. So we'd likely see more animals if we survive at all. People that could do things like have different ways of vision, including like heat sensors and kind of like maybe they don't see color, maybe they see thermal, echolocation, etc. We'd probably have like increases in our other senses as well. Or if the predators are not able to evolve at that level, they'd likely die off, especially if they're already at lower numbers from the impact of human intervention. And yeah, that's my.
So we'd have like real like predators, like the predator, because they were thermal. They see thermal.
Yeah.
That's why he had to put himself in all the mud. You know?
Yeah, I think the thing that would get them is that we've already destroyed the ecosystems and lives of current predator animals. Like for the most part, like we don't really have large predators anymore, except for really in the ocean. And even there, there's been a lot of damage done. So land predators would probably go extinct for a while. Just because they're not currently at the population levels where they could also survive this like planetary devastation.
So then just be like an overpopulation of
prey. Yeah.
Prey.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, we probably also see a very big rise in like deep ocean animals, like developing new stuff. Maybe they come up here. I don't know.
Well, we ain't seen nothing.
Dangly squid doing the dances at the bottom of the ocean comes up and says hello. We don't know. I'm not going to be here. I know that much. I need an inhaler to breathe regular air. Fill that with debris. I'm done. Like it's.
You block out the sun, I'm going to be real
We changed the weather even slightly. My body's like, reject.
The pollen be weird now, like because in the city they plant primarily male trees. Yeah, so like they're just like pollen has been so bad the last few years. Like my allergies are insane. So I don't want to live in a place that doesn't have a moon. Also, the moon is like really pretty.
And if the wind's more, the pollen goes more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like more all up in your house and in your nose.
Tumbleweeds take over like fire. We could write like NK. We know that's the fire season.
Yeah. Tumbleweeds would be an entire problem.
They are already an entire
I know, but like more wind would just make it everywhere. They'd cross oceans maybe. I don't know. Maybe they fly. Maybe they develop sentience. And that is the real enemy now. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen because it's chaos.
It is. It's
like all scenarios were like, this might happen. And if you live, this is the awful. And I was like, okay. And then like if you live, like all the things that happen are very unpredictable. Like we know they will happen, but we don't know like how or when or how often.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to die.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, it's make it easy for everybody, including myself, and just go when the moon goes.
It's so like impressive, like the characters in the trilogy, like just everyone is like, yep, here's the season. A bunch of us are gonna die off. Like they're just like prepared for that. They're like, yeah,
Yeah. Well, everyone's in
we here
lizard
for a good
brain,
time, not a
so
long time. So
it's a
not even a good
constant
time.
who gets on the boat
Yeah.
for the next one.
Yeah.
And
Who
throw
can-
everyone else out into the wilderness to die. And then you're like, wow, okay. We actually did need those people. So
Yeah, it's always like, which use casts are we gonna keep? You know, the strong bodies or the storytellers? Not them.
the leaders who
Loris?
just like run away and do
Yeah.
stuff
No leaders, no Loris,
filled with
no nothing.
privilege.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So good. What a great just a great series. I am really excited to finish it. And it has made me want to continue doing Writers Forever. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But we are in a way.
It does make us want to, though. Like, it's like, why ever watch a movie again? It's just not gonna
You make the world up right in here.
Yeah, you can do it in your brain.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, thank you for sharing this. The horrors of losing our moon.
I thought there was going to even be more. I was like really looking. There's a bunch, but I just mean like I was expecting to Google what kind of cool way human evolve later, and that it was going to be crazy. And it was like,
It was like, you aren't going to.
We're going to become giant golden retrievers who don't know how to think critically. And I was like, yeah, probably.
We're colorblind.
Our brains get smaller.
We only eat grass.
Yeah.
So much. Yeah. That's fine.
We can be like raccoons and like eat garbage and survive forever.
Yeah,
I don't know if they live very long actually, but like, you know what I mean? Like your stomach can just eat stuff. Or we'll be like koalas and eat leaves that we can't digest until we die.
Sounds like it. Sounds like us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's koalas. It's like koalas or something else. But yeah, they eat leaves and they can't digest them. And it doesn't give them any nutrients. So they just eat them obsessively until they die. And it's horrifying. But that's going to be humans now.
Yeah.
Maybe, if we live.
Or it would just be like pandas where we look like predators. Like we got the canines and everything. But then we just eat bamboo. Yeah, we wouldn't because none of us have working, or a lot of us don't have our appendix anymore. Can't be.
Oh, I still got mine. I think, unless I never had one in the first place. My body's weird. I don't have wisdom teeth. They just never existed. They didn't get removed. They just never were there. So I imagine no one's done a scan. They're missing organs.
I think they're all the ones I need are there. I have at least one kidney.
Yeah. It does kind of its job. I don't know. Yeah.
Who knows what's going on in here? Not me.
Yeah. I don't know.
And Kay knows a lot. She knows a lot of things. So trust her as a source. What a great epic, amazing storytelling, both on like the scientific part, but then also calm down, the emotional part.
It's really funny, the thing you said in the nicest.
Yeah, it's also just like so sad. Like it is so sad, and it never stops being sad. Like I haven't stopped being sad.
Yeah, I mean, based on what happens later, it doesn't sound like it gets like better. It's like cool. And happier. It's cool, yeah. And I feel like there's some hope in there, like in some way, like because people are going to keep people in, even if it's a bad time. But yeah, it's stressful.
I never related so much to a character when like there's like a theater where Alabaster's like, "Can you do this?" and like explains this thing, and Ethan's like, "What?"
Yeah,
What
like,
is
what
that?
did
What do
you
you
say?
mean?
And
What
then
is that?
there's
What does it
annoyed.
mean?
And then,
What? And it's
yeah.
just like, that's me. Oh my God, that's exactly how I feel. And then there was a Stone Eater.
What is it?
Oh my God, a Stone Eater? What is that?
I assume they eat stones. That's
What does it
the context
mean?
clues,
What
but other than
exists?
that,
How'd
I
they
don't
get
know.
here? Why are they contributing to my nightmares and my depression? Anyway,
I mean, it'd be dope to not have to like be on the up. You could just go on the down and like explore down there. Like, because they can travel through the earth.
yeah.
So you don't have to be on the top part. You can just do wherever you go, wherever you want. Do whatever you
just
want.
gotta understand that the
You're cold,
Earth is
go to the
shifting.
earth core.
The Earth is always shifting under there.
Yeah.
It's
but like go
dangerous.
down to the earth core, find Godzilla. Like that's what you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to the bottom of the ocean, awaken Cthulhu. What are we doing?
Yeah. You could do that if you want.
Awaken Cthulhu and Godzilla. Let them fight. Now we have entertainment. No one has
Yeah.
TV anymore.
Yeah. I do want to know what the obelisks do. I'm not there yet, and I'm excited to figure out what that's all about.
I don't know. It's just big question marks every time.
Mm-hmm.
You look like that meme, like with a mouth, like what is that?
Yeah.
But like fun, like a fun.
Yeah,
way.
but like happy. You're
Learning
like
is fun.
it's not math. It's like science,
It's like
history,
fantasy. It's like
fantasy,
made up words.
societal critiques. Yeah, all of it. 10 out of 10. We did it.
It is written. We are starting on a new writer next week. We're going to be talking about Sylvia Moreno Garcia, so stay tuned for that. I have so much to say. I could pick any number of books. We're going to talk about certain dark things for her. But I'll tell you, one of my favorite writers ever. So Sylvia, be my friend, and Kate, be my friend. And like and subscribe as you do. Let us know how you feel about NK. What's your favorite book by her? And if we were to do another writer series next year,
What do you want us to talk about?
Who are we talking about? We already have some plans, but I want to hear from you as well. And drop us a email, ghoulsnextdoor@gmail.com.
Do you want us to never watch movie again, only review book?
Do we become booktubers?
Is that what happens?
I don't think so.
I don't know
if I can sustain. I don't know if we can sustain it. Reading takes a long time.
It takes a long time.
It's like why
We'd be like,
why
wow,
do
guys.
books take month when can do movie take hour half?
Exactly. But also what it shows now monthly because we read million book.
As soon as we read book take month. Yeah. Exactly.
Say less words, more things.
More
things said.
Say less word, more comprehend.
Exactly. 100%. Following that thought.
Well, don't get married.
We'll eat your kids.
I'm not going to say what happens to your kids in this book. Sorry. It's so sad.